Welcome back to Just Chattin'. And this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own amusement. And ordinarily this would be our Audie time, but Audie is unhappy with me, so he is sulking. He may show up, he may not. The issue is he believes I didn't put enough treats on his cat food. And apparently for a little cat, this is like the worst thing that could happen to him in his entire life, that he got slighted on the number of treats on the cat food. By the way, he's wrong. I actually believe I put more on than I usually put. It's just that I put two different kinds. And apparently he thought he should get the usual amount of each kind, hence twice the number of treats. But that's not going to happen. So he's going to have to sulk, and he's going to have to wait for tomorrow to get more cat treats because he's already plenty spoiled enough. So what we are talking about today is more archetypes. And this time, I think we found something really interesting and different going on in podcast land. So when we come back. So, Nutmeg's guest this week is Jameela Jamil, who is an actress from the UK, a minority, and that's very important because certainly Ms. Jamil wants to make sure we don't forget that, and an activist, which is kind of forcing us to reconsider our definition of activism. And apparently, the only person on the planet who is an even bigger liar than Nutmeg. So, now mind you, I'm saying this publicly, so you have to know I can back this up. When I first found out that, the guest was Jameela Jamil, my first thought is, who the devil is this? Never heard of this woman before, period. So I started by looking her up on IMDb. That's the Internet Movie Database, for those of you who are not familiar. And you can look up actors, actresses, producers, anybody who has anything to do with film. Throw their name in there and all their work will come up. You can look up television shows, movies, you name it. So it's a very, very good resource because in general, what you get from them is pretty much nothing but the raw data. Such and so was in this movie, in that year, playing this character. Pretty simple. They do include a biographical section, which can be supplied by absolutely anybody. Sometimes you'll go in and the actor has written their own biographical section. Other times, they've clearly been written by managers or public relations people. Other times, they are written by what I'm going to call friends of IMDb. And these are people, just ordinary folks like you or me, who just write a biography of someone and submit it. And it's there, and if the actor or actress in question doesn't like it, obviously they can request changes. But there are many of these that I don't really want to call them fan bios, because these people, they seem not to be fans. They simply seem to be interested friends of IMDb. So when I looked her up on IMDb, I found a biography that was clearly supplied by some sort of talent representation agency, a public relations agency, her film agent, I don't know. But it was an agency like that. And most of her credits, and when I say most, I mean the overwhelming majority of her credits, is simply voice work. She appears on animated cartoons. So this really threw me because I thought, okay, this is a person who clearly doesn't have much of a profile. We are not talking Mariah Carey. We are not talking Serena Williams. We are not talking Mindy Kaling. Very different level of fame, for lack of a better word. And then I went over to Wikipedia. And Wikipedia, of course, has its problems. Anybody can submit to Wikipedia. It's a fairly easy process to be able to go in and get your stuff presented by Wikipedia as the truth. So I'm not going to pretend that this has the cachet of, say, the Encyclopedia Britannica or Who's Who or anything like that. However, in general, they try to do a good job. They don't knowingly present false information. And after having come up with nothing from IMDb that would have explained her presence on this podcast, I was, in fact, quite curious. So, hence Wikipedia. So I scurry over to Wikipedia, and I had to read the entire entry twice, some paragraphs 3 times. The reason for this is when you read through, they will have 2-3 different stories of how she got her first job, for example, how she got a big break, all these different stories. However, they are specifically quoting different interviews she has given. So apparently, she's just put out a number of highly contradictory stories about who she is, where she came from, how she got her career together. And some of them, there's no other word for it, are such blatant lies. And apparently, the woman never got a job in her life that she didn't lie to get. Really, really weird to see something like this laid out so explicitly in Wikipedia. And please feel free, go check it out, Jameela Jamil, Wikipedia, and just look at it. And it's literally one lie after another in order to get ahead. Well, obviously, there's my explanation. Why would she be on Nutmeg's podcast? Well, birds of a feather. I got started on this, the whole thing. I should have mentioned this before. When I read stories in publications, the online publications invite comments from readers. And one of the reader comments on one of the stories that was published about this podcast came from someone who just said, I find it really interesting that this woman, meaning Jameela Jamil, had claimed that she thought Nutmeg was so nice long before she had ever met her. And that's what got this whole ball rolling. Is that true? Is she making statements like this that, she knew she was such a nice person and it was years before she met her? Well, bottom line is, oh yeah, she's making all kinds of statements. So, I like this, in fact, because it's almost like Nutmeg mentoring a new little baby Nutmeg coming along. It's like, oh, did you lie to get your job? So did I. Come on, join the girls' club. Are you playing the race card? So am I. Come on, join the girls' club. spooky, spooky stuff. Because, of course, nutmeg has been very, very obvious in the archetypes she has chosen. And as we have seen, they are all words that have been applied to her. These are all criticisms that she wants to fight back against and, prove she's right and tell her side of the story. Because, God forbid we don't all love her. I'm sorry, Nutmeg. We don't all love you. Get over it. But now we've got this, and this is just utterly delightful to me. And I would like to see if she stays with this little actress who clearly is using the life of Nutmeg as the template for her own life. I wonder how successful she's going to be. I wonder if she's targeted her prince yet. Who knows? She may have. We need to watch this. We really do. Because this is sort of Nutmeg 2.0. While we are on this subject of Nutmeg and the Archetype podcast, let me just mention there were a couple of other things that came out. The Daily Mail came out with a story that one of Nutmeg's guests had made statements indicating that Nutmeg had not, in fact, conducted the interview that had appeared on the podcast, that someone else, one of Nutmeg's people, had actually done the interview. I think we all know that this has been edited to death, really, that they have worked very hard to pull these podcasts together. But I don't think any of us realized that was how far they went. But yeah, and why not? Nutmeg simply cannot conduct an interview. She's proven that beyond any reasonable doubt. So, should we be surprised? No. It is just one more example of this woman taking credit for other people's work. But we have this cute little thing come up in the podcast, and I'm going to read it to you to make sure I get this. This is from People. To close out the episode, Meghan recalled a piece of advice she received just a few days before her May 2018 nuptials from, quote, a very, very influential and inspiring woman who, for her own privacy, I won't share who it was with you. That all that garble is in quotes. That's what she's saying. Not my words. Believe me, I have a better command of the English language than to come up with that nonsense. We go on. Quote, she said to me, I know that your life is changing, but please don't give up on your activism. Don't give up because it means so much to women and girls. Yeah. It means so much to women and girls. This is right up there with that whole, and the people of South Africa danced in the streets the way they did when Mandela was released from jail. I don't think this woman is ever going to tire of complimenting herself. I don't think she is ever going to tire of going out in public and saying, oh my, look how important you are. People tell me that every day. They just say I mean so much to them. I'm doing so much good. What people? Really? Come on. It's, at this point, I have to say, it's honestly getting pathetic that she feels this desperate need to flatter herself to the point where she can't go a month without coming up with some new story about how someone told her she was the most wonderful thing in the world. It is honestly pathetic. Now, we all know she has to do this because nobody's actually saying these things. But still, can you imagine having to do this just to make yourself feel okay? And this is clearly why she's doing it, that her ego will start to just spiral down the drain unless she is telling the world how valuable she is, how important she is, how impactful she is. Really, really sad stuff. Now, in a similar vein, of course, because we're talking about activism, we have to go back to this issue. We've visited this many times. We will visit it many more times in the future. Why? Because Nutmeg will compel us to do so. She will not let this one go. And if she's going to hang on to it, we're going to have to go back again and again and again. So, in the video notes, I have links to, among other things, because, obviously I have links to whatever I'm talking about here. I have links to some footage from Nickelodeon back in the 90s when Nutmeg first got on TV, arranged by her father, and we know this because this is what he has told Tom Bauer. He's the one who arranged for this little Nickelodeon Nick News. Nutmeg's 2 minutes of fame, basically, telling the story about the letter she wrote to Procter & Gamble complaining about their commercial. And now, she has been coasting on that for 30 years now. It's like, look what I did when I was 11. I wrote a letter. It's like, I don't even understand why people are not looking at her saying, yeah, I wrote a letter when I was 11 too. Big freaking deal. We've all written letters. We all know the company did not change their ad campaign because of Nutmeg's letter. We also know, and this has been established in recent years, Procter & Gamble has no recollection of ever having received the letter. They never bothered to file it, archive it, anything like that. We also, I'm not going to say we know, it's possible that she also wrote a letter to Hillary Clinton at the same time. Now, we don't know whether or not that happened. She said she did. She also said Hillary Clinton wrote her back. Her father said she did, and that Hillary Clinton did not write her back. Neither did Procter & Gamble. I don't understand why that would even be something anybody would carry on about, but she has built an entire career as an activist around this. And this is not something recent. Now, most of her so-called activism all started around the time that she was targeting a royal family marriage. This one goes back because apparently she used that story to get into Northwestern. I believe she also used it to get into Immaculate Heart, but I could be mistaken about that. That these institutions accepted her, at least in part, because of that whole story. It's ridiculous to believe, and institutions should not believe this. It's ridiculous to believe that any company changed their ad campaign because a small child wrote them a letter. That doesn't happen. I'm sorry, that does happen in the movies. when you see something like that in the movies or on a TV show, a little child goes up and says, well, I think that's wrong. Shirley Temple used to do that in her movies. Does anybody remember that? Shirley Temple, gosh, I'm not going to... Poor Little Rich Girl, I think it was, when she goes up to Queen Victoria and says, I don't know where my daddy is. He was lost in the war, or something like that. And then she sings a little song and dances a little tap dance. Please, this is the stuff of fairy tales. Major companies do not change policy because they got a note from an 11-year-old child. And the fact is they got a great many complaints. They responded. And so what? Loads of other people wrote letters. How it is that Nutmeg's been able to coast on this for so many years. Look what I did. She'll go off. I wrote a letter when I was 11. I wrote a letter when I was 11. I wrote a lot of letters when I was 11. Literate children write letters, for heaven's sake. And I'm not stupid enough to think anybody changed the world because I wrote a letter. And certainly, I will say this. Here you go, Nutmeg. I never wrote a letter about dishwashing detergent. I used to write my letters about the war in Vietnam. So, take that and smoke it. The fact is, many of us wrote letters. No one did anything simply because we wrote a letter. And we've already seen the results of this. She has used this again and again and again. How many times have we heard this? I was an activist from the time I was 11. No, she was an 11-year-old kid. Yeah, please. Well, what I want you to see is the changing story. Take a look at the story as she tells Nickelodeon. Take a look at the story as Tom Bauer got it from her father. What we're talking about is a kid wrote a letter and nothing happened as a result. So it's about time Nutmeg let this go. It has been proven false. She needs to stop telling this lie. And now, mind you, it's not a lie that she wrote a letter. I think she did write the letter. But everything else that flowed from the letter, that's the fabrication. The idea that she changed the world with her letter, no, sorry, honey, you didn't. They don't even recognize that you wrote them. So, gotta let it go. But the reason I'm bringing this up, of course, is the Archie Types podcast was about how woke is like a stereotype, well, archetype, about women, and it's damaging women. Here's the thing. Woke is not gender related. It's not. Men can be woke, women can be woke, and given the fact that, I have to say this correctly, the truth is I'm not sure how to say this, and without offending people of other points of view when it comes to gender. I really don't, honestly, I don't know how to do that. Without intending any offense to anybody who self-identifies any way they want to. And personally, I don't care how you self-identify. You can call yourself the Shah of Iran for all I care. Makes no difference to me. Many people falling into those various categories, and I don't even know any of the categories anymore, are considered woke. Woke is not about women. And in fact, there are a lot of very woke people who will tell you that woke is about not identifying with any gender at all or identifying with whatever gender you choose. So I've got to wonder about that. And I've also got to wonder where the voices of the woke community are when Nutmeg is taking this and claiming that it is an insult directed at women. Because I don't see that. I really don't. Maybe I'm missing something here. And I'll be the first to admit that at my age, a lot of the stuff going on out there, a lot of those wheels are turning a little too fast for me to catch up. I still have a great deal of confusion about who wants to be self-identified as what. I have to say, I'll just throw this out. When I hear people refer to the gay community as the queer community, and I had to swallow hard before I said that, I still remember back in the 80s, in the 90s, when my gay friends considered queer to be a grave insult. To them, it was like the N-word applied to them. They did not want to embrace that word. They did not want to be identified by that word. Them's fighting words, as they say. And now I'm looking at this saying, no, the language may be changing. It's fine. I recognize that language changes. But I have a lot of trouble embracing a word that was considered such a grievous insult by so many of my friends so I look at a word like queer, and I have trouble with it. And I know that as time marches on, other words are going to creep in to these means of self-identification, and I'm going to have trouble with them too. Personally, like I say, I don't care how you want to self-identify. Self-identify any way you please. Makes no difference to me. But where are the voices of protest? When someone comes along and says that woke is a word used to harm women. Because I'm just not seeing it. All right, that was my little PS. We are going to go out on a slideshow, as always, because I want you to have something merry to take your mind off all this nonsense. I will see you all next time, and of course over the weekend for the thrifting and decorating videos. We are doing Christmas of the Past right now, so that's what you can tune in for. I will see you all later. Don't forget to pull up Wikipedia and take a look at Jameela Jamil's biography, because I'm telling you, they very, very clearly show you where she has lied, left, right, and sideways. As I say, looks like to get every job she's ever had. So, we need to keep an eye on this, because it looks like Nutmeg has a new pet. She's got a little protege she can mentor. I think this is great news, because who knows, if she has enough fun with her new little protege, maybe she'll just shut up and leave the rest of us alone for a while. All right, I am out of here. Have a terrific day.